Afternoon, sports fans. Live with Coach Merrill from the Sportsman's Grill here in Williamsburg, Virginia. Used to do a live show Monday through Friday, 3 to 6 on 102.1 FM and 1490 AM The Game. We're going to try something different now with YouTube. It's YouTube with Coach Merrill. Again, YouTube with Coach Merrill. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button through every show. Like and subscribe YouTube with Coach Merrill. We're going to get into the Steelers talk here with Ben Roethlisberger and Antonio Brown. Ben was a two-time Super Bowl champion. He went to the Super Bowl 3 times, 6-time Pro Bowler, 18 years as a Steeler, 2 times NFL passing leader, and of course he's going to be a future Hall of Famer. I brought in a couple guests with me. Steve Giannakis, who owns the Sportsman's Grill. We are live from the Sportsman's Grill here in Williamsburg, Virginia. So Steve Giannakis is with us, and also Dan Zanega. 2 of the biggest Steeler fans I know, and as annoying as that is to me, they, feel like they're pretty good Steeler fans and pretty knowledgeable. So anyway, and Browns fans, I know I don't typically touch this. I'm being from Cleveland, but I gave those stats. Steve, I want to start with you. What did Ben Roethlisberger mean to Steeler Nation and as a Pittsburgh Steeler and ultimately the NFL in general?
Okay, first of all, I don't want you touching that helmet anymore. That's sacred.
Right.
No, he's been the franchise. You're talking about almost 2 decades where you didn't have to worry about a quarterback. He was successful. He had the same mentality of the Steelers. He was tough. He was hard. He was always competing. I mean, he was the perfect quarterback for us.
So, being Steelers fans, help me out real quick. Ben Roethlisberger, 18-year quarterback. Prior to him, you guys danced around a little bit with a few people. But prior to that, you also had Terry Bradshaw. I think when we're talking about consistency as a quarterback, I also think it's important to bring up consistency with your head coaches in Pittsburgh. You had, Chuck Noll.
No.
You had
Bill
Cowher and Mike Tomlin. So you've had 3, is that accurate, like in 3 decades or more?
Yes.
3 head coaches. That's what I'm talking about, Browns fan. Yeah, similar to Cleveland Browns, where we've had probably 30 quarterbacks and coaches within the last 12 years. So, Danny, tell me a little bit, how does he stack up with the other quarterbacks, not only in his era, but in NFL history?
First ballot Hall of Famer, of course, right?
Maybe.
Maybe. Are you kidding me? What, you're going to say Eli Manning deserves it?
We'll get into Eli later.
All right. Anyway.
Yeah.
He stacks up on the top, right? I mean, look at the wins, the stability, the records.
So I brought up that he went to 3 Super Bowls.
Yeah.
And the conversation never, correct me if I'm wrong, don't be Steeler fans here, but the conversation never is Ben Roethlisberger is one of the NFL greatest. You hear more of that, like you always hear Brett Favre is one of the greatest with some of the records that he put up early, and Aaron Rodgers. I just want to concentrate on those 2 and remind everybody that each one of those quarterbacks only have 1 Super Bowl. Ben has 2. I believe Aaron has been to 2, won 1. Same with Brett Favre.
But again, Steve mentioned it. He talked about the consistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
His ability. He's not the guy that's he's not the forefront of the Steelers like some of these quarterbacks, right?
Right.
He's the guy that's just behind the scenes, works hard, dedicated to his craft.
Good point.
Right? He doesn't need that persona of him being out in front, right?
That's a good point.
And unfortunately, sometimes when you're not out there promoting yourself,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get the visibility, you don't get the recognition like some people do.
And that's perfect Pittsburgh. I mean,
Right.
You don't see, if you get a loudmouth or something, they usually don't go to Pittsburgh.
Or they don't stay
team.
long.
Right, it's a team.
Right.
They don't usually have problems. They don't usually have off-field problems. And when they do, then the next year they're not there.
I think, as a Browns fan, and for those of you that are new to me and my show, I'm from that Cleveland area. I've been a Browns fan my whole life. But I think as a Browns fan, I would say that I would characterize the Pittsburgh Steelers franchise as what you just said, hard workers, steel curtain, just works hard, grinds, snow, mud, rain, dirt. That's the Steelers. That's my perception of them.
Loyal fan base.
Loyal fan base.
Right, they travel well.
I don't know if I've ever been to a city where if you walked into any sports bar that you didn't have a ton of Steeler fans watching a game. How he will be remembered. Now, I'm going to have a little bit of fun with this as a Browns fan because we always, Ben is a guy, he's, what's the word that we do now? He's woke. If he needs to use the bathroom, he goes wherever he wants, right? He's been known to be in all kinds of bathrooms. Girls' bathroom, boys' bed, doesn't matter. No?
let's focus
Those
on
those are accusations. No, there's been no convictions.
Let's just focus.
Okay, so for
on the
Steelers
topic
fans,
here, right?
Steeler fans, he's remembered as just this big, tough quarterback, hard worker, Super Bowl champion that you didn't really want to tackle because it was big as hell. But for everybody else in Cleveland, we just remember him wrecking his motorcycle,
and he loves Pittsburgh.
He's
Pittsburgh
not shy.
loves him.
Wasn't
You-
shy. What?
You know,
Yeah.
my wife, a Patriots fan, calls him Yukon Cornelius, right?
Yeah.
He goes up against the abominable snowman.
You know,
right?
I got a chance to
He-
watch
he's
him a
not
little
gonna get
bit.
hurt.
He played for the university, or Miami University there in Ohio. He played Bowling Green, which was my alma mater, played him MAC championship, and rolling out to the right towards the sidelines.
Tell him that story.
I was
That's
working the
awesome.
chains with a
Right.
friend of mine, Dave Whitmire, and Ben was, I can't remember the linebacker Bowling Green had, but he was somebody that was well recognized at the time in the MAC, and he and Ben had been jawing back and forth. And game was getting a little tight, and Ben starts rolling towards the sidelines, right towards me. And, you know, this is a big guy, even in Miami. And so I'm kind of backing up. I don't want to get hit by him or the people chasing him. And all of a sudden, he's probably near midfield. He lets one fly, comes across his body, throws it towards the end zone, and yells, "Eat this!" right when he threw it. And my attention went from getting creamed to watching the ball go to the end zone. And, you know, it was a completion for a touchdown pass. And I'll never forget that. I thought, this guy's special. You know, not only John back and forth with, this linebacker was no joke. And it was a great game. And he's being chased by this guy. I knew he was going to take a hit. I was hoping I wasn't going to get one, and said, "Eat this," and let it sail into the end
It's,
zone.
it's typical Steelers. They have a way
Right.
of finding these guys
Yeah.
that aren't, big names coming out of school. There's
Right.
very rarely that. You know what I
Focus
mean?
on
And
the craft.
right. And it's
I wonder
just
if that was the film
solid.
that they saw that clinched the deal to draft him.
Now,
I wonder.
did you ever-
Yeah,
Did you ever
the
work-
guy
Eat
with
this.
the,
Right,
the guy scared with
Yeah.
the chains on the sidelines.
Yeah.
How did you move those chains on
Hey,
the sidelines? Yeah.
Coach
How's that-
Cowher,
there's
I don't
a
know.
lot
The
of
guy
accuracy in
said,
those
"Eat
things?
this." We'll get into that another time. Antonio Brown, I can't talk about the Steelers without bringing him up. He was one of your best wide receivers, at least during that time. Moved around, was at Raiders, running around the backyard, excited when he got released there, and then he went to the Patriots, had some success there. Seemed to become friends with Tom Brady. And then Tom goes to Tampa, wants to bring Antonio along, who wasn't playing with anybody at the time. He gets there. So he gets to the Jets game this year in New York. Third quarter, gets ticked, says he's got an ankle injury, can't play, but the real reason, that, or at least is talked about, is that he didn't like the way he was being used. He wasn't being thrown the ball enough, so he wasn't going to go back out there and play. Coach comes over, says, "Get in the game." He said, "No." He says, "Beat it." So he takes all of his stuff off, gets naked, not quite, and runs across the field, jumping up and down, and I thought the same thing you did, Steve, is, well, I guess the ankle got better pretty quick. I mean, you guys jumping up and down trying to get the crowd's attention neatly. So Antonio certainly has had his issues. It's been well reported. You know, mental health obviously is no joke. But here was my issue with him. This is nothing new. Antonio brings attention to himself, unlike what the Steelers or Patriots organization really allow for. So it was never going to work out there. But that's not new. We've known Antonio to bring attention to himself. What got me was afterwards, he was in a couple interviews, and he started talking about Tom Brady. And he says, Tom and I are only friends because I'm a good football player. Do you remember when he said this? He goes, that's what caught my attention. I thought, so you're saying that you're only friends with Tom Brady because you're a good football player, and I got to thinking, the only reason that most people are friends with whomever that they're friends with is because of, I always call it geography, location, what your interests are, where you work, what your activities are. Steve's a golfer. I'm a golfer. We play golf. Dan, not much of a golfer. Just because you go to the golf course doesn't mean that you're a golfer. But I started to think that's unfair. You're taking a shot at Tom by saying you're only friends with me because I'm a good football player. You're friends because you are a football player, and so is he. That's what brought you together, was football. It's unfair of him to attack Tom in that regard.
It's typical Antonio Brown. He's definitely in the wrong. There's some issues with him. We've had it. You could see the cracks when he was in Pittsburgh. Doing a video of a team meeting or a locker room thing. That got out, and they kind of quashed that a little bit. But it's just been kind of like evolved, throwing stuff off a balcony in an apartment complex. And, if you go back, the history, and I'm surprised, I'm not really surprised that so many people would take a chance on him. You know, and because there's always an issue.
People take a chance on him though because he is that part is true. Is because you're a good football player. You might help us win a game.
We had this conversation this morning. You talked about surrounding yourself and the people you hang out with is what happens, right?
Right. That's who you become.
Here's the opportunity for a guy like him to be taken in by one of the greatest or the greatest quarterback, right? Yeah. To learn and don't get me wrong, Antonio Brown does not need to learn his craft. He is one of the better ones at it.
No doubt.
Right? But it's that next step, the evolution of that. If you wanted that Hall of Fame career, which is going to be debatable today, right?
Right.
But you're around Tom Brady.
Right.
Who
does everything right.
But you're assuming that Tom wants to bring him down that road.
Right.
He may see what he is for what he is, and not want to.
But I've even heard reports where Tom invited him into his home. To work out with him and trying to help him out and everything. I don't know if that's true or not. I've heard that before. But I think to Dan's point, though, is you're given an opportunity to surround yourself with people that, for the most part, do the right thing. Right. Tom has often said he does everything right. Except for, the proper air quality into football.
To Antonio's point, maybe Tom was only his friend because he was a good football player. He's inviting somebody else off the street to go around with him.
I think that's what brought them together. But there's always something that brings everybody together. Right. So I think it was unfair to attack him like that. Okay, that was the Steelers. Sometimes I wonder though too if Tom Brady, if just not Antonio Brown. Of course, Antonio Brown and that whole incident is not what pushed him out of football, for crying out loud. But at a certain point, you wonder sometimes if he sits on the couch, he said, "You know what? The BS just isn't worth what the rewards are anymore. I think I'm done." And I don't know. Anyway.
Same situation what happened to the Steelers, right? Let's look at the guy. Does he make sense in our team? Okay.
Well, I don't know. We'll see if he gets another shot too. Okay, that's Coach Merrill Radio program. Remember, it's YouTube with Coach Merrill. Hit that like and subscribe button. Like and subscribe, YouTube with Coach Merrill. And we'll see you soon. Live from the Sportsman's Grill in Williamsburg.